Today we're going to talk about Cisco certifications. You've probably heard of CCNA or CCNP, and you're wondering, why do I need that? And if you watched Eli the Computer Guy, he said that a CCNA doesn't really get you much, but you can get a job with a CCNP. And it's true, you can probably get a job that pays $70,000 or $80,000 if you're a CCNP who knows what you're doing. Or you can get paid more money for your existing job. And of course, the second benefit of getting a CCNA or any Cisco certification is a nice, shiny certificate in the mail. And the third benefit is that you'll get a lot smarter. Even if you've been working in the field for a while, there's a lot of material covered by the certification curriculum that you don't really think about on a day-to-day basis, but that you'll really learn when you're studying. Why Cisco? There are so many other network products on the market. The most popular is Cisco, but there are others. Dell and HP are the second most common for network equipment. There's also Juniper. Juniper's used by a lot. Brocade switches are less common, but I've worked with Brocade equipment. Huawei is a Chinese company that's coming into the market now, and they're advertising and they're pushing their network equipment. And of course, Avaya, which makes phones, also makes network equipment. And all these companies have their own certification process. But Cisco is the most popular, it's the most well recognized, and a lot of the concepts are the same. Whether you're working with a Dell switch or an HP switch, you have to remember that the internet is completely connected and it's all plug and play. Your laptop or a network switch or a voice over IP phone, for the most part, they just work together. It doesn't really matter too much who the manufacturer is. So in the real world, if you want to figure out something, you can just Google it. Even once you're totally certified to the top level, you're not gonna know everything. Sometimes you're gonna have to look up a command or a technique, and Google is your friend. And so is Stack Overflow, or you can post a question on Quora or even Reddit. And if you're working with Cisco equipment, there'll be a lot of people who are familiar with the same equipment and can help you out. So, how do you get certified? Well, you have to go to the Pearson VUE website and sign up for an account. You also have to sign up for an account with Cisco, and then you link the two accounts, and you go online, you sign in, you pick the exam you want to write, you schedule an appointment, they give you lots of opportunities, and you show up and write the exam. And the exam is basically like going through airport security. You need 2 pieces of ID, and they photograph you, and you take everything out of your pockets, and you go into a room to write the exam on a computer, and they're watching you with cameras, and you can only use a dry erase marker and a pad, and you have to roll up your sleeves, just in case you wrote something on your sleeves. And the important thing, what's interesting about Cisco exams is you can't review your answers. Once you answer a question, it's done. You can't go back. So a typical exam has, let's say, 50 or 60 questions, and they're multiple choice, and some of them are matching, and you answer them in order. And it's scored out of 1,000 or something. So you either pass or fail, and they tell you like right at the end of the exam if you passed or failed. And the pass mark is about 85%. So exams are marked out of 1,000, and the questions have varying difficulty and they're randomized. So you might get 50 questions, or you might get 52 questions, or you might get 54 questions. And there's a 95% failure rate on these exams. Most people fail the first time. That's okay. So, your Cisco certification expires after 3 years, and once it expires, you have to do the exam again to renew your certification. And the reason that certifications expire is because the internet and technology and products, they change all the time. So the curriculum is always being updated. And now there's a push, say, for industrial Ethernet and Internet of Things, and these concepts weren't as popular or well known a few years ago, but we need to keep people certified. So if we look at the levels of certification, right at the bottom is the CCENT, which is Cisco Certified Entry Network Technician. And that is the lowest level of certification you can get. You just pass one exam. And then the next level is the CCNA, which is Cisco Certified Network Associate. Many people have this, and when they tell you CCNA, what they're talking about is CCNA routing and switching. And then the next level is CCNP, or Cisco Certified Network Professional. And the next level is the CCIE, or Cisco Certified Inter-Network Expert. And the level at the top is the CCAR, Cisco Certified Architect. Each level has different topics, so you can get multiple CCNA certifications, or multiple CCNP certifications, or multiple CCIE certifications. And the reason is there's a CCNA that covers Wi-Fi, there's a CCNA that covers voice over IP, there's a CCNA that covers security. But the CCENT just covers routing. There's only one CCENT. There's a whole bunch of CCNAs, and there's a whole bunch of CCNPs, and there's a whole bunch of CCIEs, and then again, there's only one CCAR. And there's a whole bunch of specialist certifications like Internet of Things, business, and operating systems. Now, there's also 3 other certifications that are below this entire pyramid, and they're basically a waste of time. One of them is the CCT Data Center, which basically it's basically like figuring out where the serial number is on a product and what number to call for tech support. It's good for people who install equipment and plug them in but don't actually do any configuration or troubleshooting. And then there's a CCT routing and switching, which is almost the same as a data center. And then there's the CCT telepresence, which is telling you exactly how to plug a telephone in. So at the base level is a CCENT, which is one exam, 50 or 60 questions. It's based on a book that's about 1,000 pages long, and it just gives you a broad view of the internet, IP addresses, basic switch configs, basic router configs, DNS network address translation. And if you pass that, you can get to the CCNA. Now, when people say CCNA, they're mostly talking about CCNA routing and switching. And you have to pass one exam to get that, or 2, depending on if you took your CCENT first. And There's a whole bunch of CCNA topics besides the routing, and some of them need a prerequisite and some of them don't, but we'll talk about this later. And then you have the CCNP level. You need to pass about 3 exams or 4 exams depending on the area that you're getting your CCNP in. And you need a CCNA to have your CCNP or a CCIE. So at the CCIE level, you don't need any prerequisites at all. You can take any CCIE exam that you want. An exam is a written exam, it's about 2 hours, and then there's a lab exam that's 8 hours long where you have to actually configure some Cisco network equipment. And it's open book. That is, you can have all the user manuals, but no Google allowed. And it's $1,600 per exam, and 14,000 people have a CCIE worldwide. And then at the top, you've got your CCAR. So you have to apply to take this exam, and it costs $15,000. And before you even get to write the exam, they convene a panel of the existing CCARs, and they look at your application and your work experience, and they decide if you're worthy of taking the exam. And then you go before the panel and they evaluate you. And there's another set of certifications called the design certifications. And at the bottom, you have the design associate, and then you have the design professional, and then you have the design expert. And again, you need a 2-hour written exam and an 8-hour practical exam to pass. Now, what's interesting about the CCAR exam is you basically get a major enterprise problem and you have to come up with a solution. So there's a lot of business in here. It's not necessarily computers and networking and technicalities. It's you have to understand how the business works. So if you're implementing a network or a phone system or a video conferencing system at a large enterprise, you're not just doing it because it's cool from an IT perspective. You're doing it because the business is going to use it to either generate more revenue from it or they're going to save money. So maybe the current network is not working too well and it costs too much to maintain, or it's slow and the organization cannot communicate with the different departments. So the new network is going to cost them money, but in the long run it's going to save them money. Or they might be implementing a phone system that's going to integrate with their enterprise resource planning system so they can track customer service calls and that kind of thing, and that's going to allow them to market better to their customers, and the improved marketing is going to increase their revenue. And it's important in the CCAR to communicate. You need to show that you understand the needs of the business, and you need to be able to take the concepts and the solutions to your problem and explain it to all the nerds. So you have to understand that the IT people at the company, they don't necessarily understand Cisco, and they don't necessarily understand networks as well as you think they do, and you need to be able to summarize a concept to them in a very technical way. And then you need to be able to take this whole system and this whole design and sell it to the CEO. You need to explain it to him from a business perspective. So with your CCAR, you need to put together a plan. Is your plan feasible? And you need to ask questions like, what happens if part of the network fails? And can you make it redundant? So if you implement a network that's redundant, it's going to cost you twice as much money in terms of investment. But you have to say, hey, if part of this network fails, what's the chance of that happening? It might be 1%, it might be 5%, it might be 2%, and then you have to look at how much money you would lose if the network failed. And the reason is, if you're a small business and the network failed, you might be able to wait a day or a week or a month to get it replaced and not have to spend the $5,000 or $10,000 up front to build a redundant system. But if you're a hospital, you might want to buy 2 of everything, because a failure in the network for even a few minutes would be a very, very life-threatening situation, which would translate into a loss of millions of dollars. And you have to think about risk management, hardware, licensing costs, the cost to train the staff, how everything gets installed, project management. And it goes without saying that you should know everything about everything. So network security, a unified communication, collaboration, the cloud, everything, before you can take this exam. I am going to talk about prerequisites, and they look complicated, but they're really not. And we're going to summarize them in basically 3 rules. At the bottom, you've got your CCENT routing certification, and then you have a whole bunch of different CCNA certifications. So you have routing and switching, cloud, data center, collaboration, cyber ops, and service provider. They're in red, and they don't have any prerequisites. You can just take them. And then we have security, industrial, wireless, and CCDA, and they do have prerequisites. And if you've got your CCENT, you can use that to do the CCNA in routing. And you can also take your CCENT and use it as a prerequisite for the security, the industrial, the wireless, and the CCDA. And if you have the routing, you can use that to take the same thing: security, industrial, wireless, and CCDA. And if you have a CCIE of any kind, you can also do the same thing. So basically, routing and switching, CCIE, and CCENT let you take the courses. On the CCNP level, we have basically the same routes that we did on the CCNA level. So security, routing, data center. We don't have industrial or cyber ops. And your CCDA allows you to take the CCDP, but you also need the routing and switching to take that route. And then the only prerequisite you need for the other CCNPs is a corresponding course on the NA level. So for example, routing and switching on the NA lets you take routing and switching on the NP. Cloud, same thing. Data center, same thing. Collaboration, same thing, and so on. And then if you have a CCIE, you can use that to take a CCDP, and you can use that to take any CCNP course. So any CCIE lets you take any CCNP. So if your CCIE is in security, you can take a CCNP in routing, or a CCNP in cloud, or a CCNP in wireless. It doesn't matter. And then on the top level, we have a whole bunch of CCIEs. We have security, collaboration, service provider, wireless, data center, and routing and switching. And none of them have any prerequisites. So if you think you're really smart, you can just go and take a CCIE exam. You don't have to start at the bottom. And at the highest level, you have the CCAR. And like I said, there are no formal prerequisites except for the CCDE. And then the interview with the panel. So if we look at each area or each stream, we could start with the cloud. And the cloud on the CCNA level tells you how to build people, cloud infrastructure, storage, basic knowledge. And on the NP level, it discusses VMware, which is very important in the cloud. Collaboration is unified communications, voice messages, end user support, video conferencing. At the professional level, also looks at implementing and troubleshooting Cisco phones, video, apps. And at the IE level, it also looks at designing complex collaboration systems. Cyber ops is mostly network security, cryptography, security monitoring, attack methods. The data center teaches you basic networks, troubleshooting switches, IP addresses. It's almost like the CCNA routing and switching, but it also includes unified storage, computing networks, fabrics. On the professional level, we also look at Cisco United Fabrics, which is basically storage area networks. And at the expert level, we look at design. The industrial certification involves industrial protocols, Profinet, security, wireless, troubleshooting. The routing, which is the most common, looks at troubleshooting and setting up switches, routers, IP addresses, security, egrep, VPNs. At the IE level, it also involves complicated design. The security starts out with basic security concepts, firewalls, endpoint security, VPNs. At the professional level, we look at guest services, identity management, administration, secure communications, design, hashing, encryption. And at the expert level, we look more at design and configuration. The service provider certification route is for people who work at internet service providers. So we're looking at building the next generation networks, switches, routers. At the professional level, we look at routing, advanced network routing, MPLS. And at the expert level, we look at design. For wireless, we're looking at basic wireless fundamentals, how to implement a wireless network, designing, deploying, troubleshooting, predictive design, site surveys with ECHO and the other programs, real-time applications, high availability networks, Flex Connect, wireless bridging. So there's a number of choices based on the area that you're interested in and the area that you're working in, and there is some overlap between the different areas. So how do you study for a Cisco exam? Well, real world experience is pretty important. Being able to log in and configure a Cisco device and or troubleshoot a Cisco device. Cisco devices have a command line interface, and you need to be able to work with that. You should read the guidelines for each exam. They're on a Cisco website. For many exams, there's also an official Cisco book, which maybe is not the best, but it was written by Cisco, and it has everything that you need to know. Exam content does change often because the world changes often, so make sure that you're studying with the most up-to-date content for the exam that you're taking. Do practice questions. You need to be careful because time is limited on a real exam. And of course there are Cisco courses. There are other companies offering courses online. With some topics there's no official Cisco book. On the CCIE level you probably definitely need some real world experience, and to get your CCAR you probably need some real world business experience, not just working as an IT person but working as a manager or in some financial position, so that you can understand how the business works. So if you have any questions, leave a comment and we'll answer it. Thank you.